Welcome to episode 82 of the Board Game Barrage podcast. Once again, returning in high definition stereo sound.
Optimal quality.
Actually, I think it is in mono though, right?
Yeah, so that's not going to work at all as I wipe my mouth across the microphone.
Today on the Board Game Barrage podcast, we're going to be talking about the highs and the lows and the stories that board games cause. We've been playing a lot of board games the past week as a result of Gen Con 2019. And we just want to go over some of the humorous and silly situations that happen when you gather around the table. But before we do that, as we always do, we will be talking about some of the games that we have played this past week.
So we played Tuki, which is a new competitive dexterity stacking sort of game. Sort of a way to think about it is kind of like tangrams.
Wow, we're bringing back tangrams?
I try to like,
Deep
it's part of the show Bible. Yeah, exactly. So think of it like tangrams where everybody has the same pieces and is trying to recreate the same image. But instead of flat pieces and a two-dimensional image, you have these 3D blocks. And instead of trying to build the image on the surface, you're building an image up into the air. It's sort of like building like a little skyscraper sort of thing. There are 3 colors, I guess, in the base game, 4 if you play the advanced version, and you're trying to get your pieces to match the card. And as you're doing that, you have these white pieces. So I think the 3 colors are like red, blue, and yellow, but you have a bunch of these white pieces. And in recreating the image on the card, you can put the white pieces anywhere you want in order to get that image done. So there may be a space on the card between a red and a blue piece. And the way that you do it is you just use these white pieces in any way you want to get that image recreated. The white pieces are sort of wild pieces. You don't have to worry about fitting them in the right place or anything. You just need to use them in a way to get that final image done.
And they're mostly just like structural support.
Right, exactly. Yes, exactly. They act mainly as support. A good way to sort of think about it are as blueprints. You're trying to build structures up in the air. They're standing up, which makes it sort of novel, as opposed to a lot of these, can you recreate this picture which tend to be two-dimensional with flat pieces? And I thought that these white, do whatever you want with them to get it done, was sort of a novel addition. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. It's, it's not super deep, but it's enough of a twist on that race to recreate the image genre that I had a good time and I could see myself playing it again. What do you guys think of Tuki?
The one thing I liked about it specifically is sometimes you'd look at the image and you'd be like, okay, I know exactly how to do this. So you'd build the structure and then you get to the last piece and realize that the way you've done it, it doesn't quite balance. Like you'll place it and it'll look perfect, but then the thing slowly starts to topple over. So it becomes a question of, okay, how can I adjust all of my support so this thing still works in the same way, but it like counterbalances itself? Right. There weren't that many puzzles that sort of had that factor, but that was always my favorite of like, how do I slightly nudge this over so it just about holds together?
Right.
So I believe this is the 3rd title in the 4-letter word games from Plan B Games, Azul, Reef, and Tuki.
Oh, really? I had no idea that this was part of the same family.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Okay.
It struck me as the most niche product in that line. It seems like a dexterity game for smart people. Like, it's more puzzly than junk art. It's more puzzly than Men at Work. There isn't just this fun stacking going on. There's actually like solving something a little bit. I was substantially worse than both of you at this, and it did not seem like throughout the course of the game. And that's tough for me in this weight of game. I just sort of felt like I was losing consistently round over round. And it might be fun for those who are really good at that quick. It's a puzzle.
Yeah.
But done quick. And I can't do puzzles slowly. So why am I doing them quickly?
Right. Yeah.
But the components are wonderful. It's cute and fast. And if you wanted something with just a little bit more brain power added to it than your usual dexterity game, I think this is a good choice.
Well, another thing really quickly that I want to mention about it is I like the sense that I got when I looked at these puzzles that there wasn't a one correct answer.
Yeah.
Like with a lot of these puzzle games where you're trying to race to complete it, there's one solution and you have to just find that one solution. Here I felt like there were multiple ways to approach and get the right answer, and that just felt fun to me. It wasn't like I was trying to find the one path. It was just like do your own thing to get there.
The other thing I liked after we were playing it, because we were playing it with the demoer, she was playing with us at the same time, and they were so substantially better at it.
Right.
So it did feel like a learnable skill in a way that if you just did it enough, you would just get so good at it. There was also one little twist that was cool. You roll a die, and occasionally the structure you have to build has to be like elevated off of the ground. And it's interesting to think that all of the puzzles allow you to do that. So I guess they must have thought about that a fair bit as well, which would substantially make them harder, depending on the puzzle. I like that little twist as well.
So that is Tuki by Plan B Games.
The game I want to talk about is God of War, the card game. This is a brand new release by Simon, or I'm being told it's Come On now. Yeah, they've double switched on us.
Come on.
Come on, games.
No, Neelan. Come on.
Come on. Before we get into this, I want to say really quickly.
Public service announcement.
Thank you very much.
Disclaimer alert.
I am, in my day job, an employee of Sony Computer Entertainment. That has no bearing on what
Buy
is to follow.
Get off your pedestal.
Shill. He's a shill.
I am not specifically involved with God of War in any fashion, but this was a game where I knew I had to play it because of my being a fan of the video game series, but I was expecting it to be hot garbage. I think this style of licensed game, especially the idea of translating like a cinematic character action game to a card game, felt so crazy to me that I was very skeptical. And I was pleasantly surprised that this actually worked really well. The system is pretty novel in that you play one of, I believe there are 10 scenes, they're calling them in the box. A scene consists of perhaps more, perhaps less, but cards arranged in columns. And depending on how you interact with the cards in those columns, whether they are enemies or environmental objects that you submit cards to interact with, you'd be flipping over the cards in order to trigger new events in the scenario. So for instance, in the scenario we played, there are these crystal shard cards that you collect at various sort of locations in the scenario by moving your character to a specific column. You play those cards and you deal damage to the hive. And once you've done enough of that damage, you flip the cards over in the hive, revealing either a new condition, a new objective, a new win condition, or you might deal a certain amount of damage to an enemy, and then you flip the cards over and that enemy is now downed onto the ground and they're now within melee range. And what's really unique about that is that all of the card art is forming a consistent single image across the entire array of cards. And every time you flip over cards, portions of the image are changing, but it still forms a consistent image. So it's a really clever idea where you sort of create these vignettes that are evolving over time based on how you interact with the scene. And if any of this sounds crazy just for the idea of a God of War game, you'd be as surprised as I was. It felt like a sort of an interesting enough design that I wasn't expecting to be in this game. On a higher level, you're picking a character, you have a deck of cards that's specific to that character, you move from column to column, playing attacks, which are a combination of initiation cards and sort of modifier cards in order to deal damage to enemies in the scene. Other characters can contribute cards in order to support you. You roll a die to represent the enemy's shield value, so you have to mitigate that by sort of either trying to overkill them by playing more modifier cards. And that's pretty much the extent of the system. So you're collecting cards to sort of initiate these event triggers and to support your allies in combat. So it's a fairly simple idea, and one that felt maybe a little bit like it was too easy. I don't think it was necessarily something that we found was especially challenging, but the joy for me was in discovering the way that all of the cards would reveal new moments in the scene. It's the sort of thing that I feel like if you were to play through each of the scenarios, I would hope you'd be surprised by some of the puzzle interaction elements in it. I just don't know exactly how much it would live up to repeat plays of an individual scenario. They also have, I think they said 5 bosses in the game. We did not see that, so I don't know how that works exactly. But certainly a very interesting idea and kind of a neat way to handle this sort of licensed game. What did you guys think of it?
I got to be Kratos. The demoer immediately said, you
You look like Kratos.
represent the ideals that... Well, I don't actually know. I haven't played these games. He's just a buff man, so that was me, of the three of us. And then, Mark, you were the woman character, correct? Neelan, you were the dog?
No, I wasn't the dog. I was the small child, but thank you.
Oh, true. Easy. And then the demoer played this brain character that kept helping me do cool shit. It was like, what can I do but buff Kratos even more?
Why would I waste my buffs on these two losers?
Yeah, it had a more fun card management system than I expected going into it. You know, I asked him at the beginning. I didn't know it was a co-op when we sat down, which was disappointing. You know, like a classic. Is that a Highlander joke? What? Disappointed.
Oh, yeah. Hercules.
Is it Hercules?
Yeah.
It's so funny. You know what I'm talking about?
No, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Really?
Yeah.
This is such a... I love this anecdote so much. You find the clip. There's a clip of the show Hercules, like the one that was like the Xena spin-off. Or the other way around. I can't remember.
Yeah.
And there's a scene where a character like walks into a thing, like looks around him and is just like, disappointed, and he shouts out loud, and apparently it was just like a script line, like he was just supposed to look disappointed, but the actor just shouted the line out, and that's what made the thing, because they just loved it so much.
Wait a minute, this isn't my world. Disappointed.
Because he does it, he plays it so straight.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
So when we sat down for the game and it was revealed that it was a co-op, I was obviously disappointed. But you are choosing, you know, melee attacks versus ranged attacks, and there's some. One of the things that annoyed me was that everyone he's like, well, there's no reason not to put down all your cards, so put down all your cards on the table, and then you're kind of having to look around and essentially quarterback each other's turn. But what was cool is that it did seem like there were some options where you could save cards to help someone else, or I was making choices as Kratos, which was cool, as opposed to I thought it would kind of play itself. But I think you disagree with me. I think you felt like it kind of played itself.
I think I said that. I think to some extent I felt, not that it played itself, but I think that I never felt like the decisions were going to be the difference between us winning or losing. You know, it didn't feel like, oh man, this is tough. If I do this, this might happen, or this, you know, it kind of felt like regardless of what I did, it felt like everything was going to be fine.
To go back to the puzzle comment, and I agree, I think, with our sentiment that the puzzles aren't at all deep.
Well, I mean, who can say based on the other two scenes, right?
But based on the one.
Yeah.
But what I did like about it is that when we were introduced to the scenario we were playing, we knew that getting these shards was going to be important, but we had no idea how to get them.
Yeah.
It wasn't apparent on the sort of board as it was presented to us at the beginning of the game. It wasn't until we started doing things and attacking certain characters that we found out, okay, this is how you acquire these shards, which is a narrative twist that you wouldn't expect from a card game.
Right, exactly. And one of the things I said to you guys, actually, I said to afterwards, is one of the things that has been a fundamental, this is definitely not the right word, but a fundamental failing, I would say, of Gloomhaven's scenario design is it doesn't have those moments where scenarios evolve in the middle of them. So there was kind of this refreshing idea of, like you said, at the beginning of the scenario, you don't exactly know what you have to do, so you play with the systems a little bit. You test things out. You shoot a thing here, you kill a thing here, and then a card flips over and you're revealed, oh, take one of these cards, and now you're like, now I know what to do with this. I love like mid-game reveals like that, and it seems like the system seems catered to deliver those. So hopefully the other scenes utilize that to the full extent. That is God of War, the card game by Come On Games.
Come on. Games.
It'll always be cool, mini or not, in my heart. So the game that I wanted to talk about that we played this past week also aligns really well with our featured topic. So why don't we take a break to read a review? One of the best things you can do to support the Board Game Barrage podcast is writing in a review. We love to read these reviews. We had someone that we met at Gen Con who said that he was so excited to have met us that he was going to write a second review, which I thought was funny. It was almost like he knew we were about to ask him to write a review. So anyway, this review comes to us from Canada, from AZ Manian Devil, which is good because we're headed to Canada pretty soon for our journey, not down under. That's almost what I said.
The opposite of that, yeah.
Yeah, but it's AZ Manian Devil, which reminds me of
Tasmanian Devil.
Yeah. Best New to Me podcast. I'm so glad to have been introduced to this podcast. The hosts are passionate. Clearly enjoy doing this podcast as their chemistry and banter shows. Yes, you too, Callan, as well as the love of this hobby. They are also aware of their newfound place as a voice in the hobby and take that responsibility with care. The closest equivalent to this I can find is to compare with another podcast I adore. The Starters, the Basketball Jones. This is his podcast. Created by a group of friends who want a reason to spend more time with each other speaking about the thing they're passionate about. Would recommend to everyone. Start with their top 50 game series. It gives a good sense of their taste and styles. Or with episode 35 as recommended by one of the hosts. Once you are hooked, please come and join the conversation on their Discord channel.
Good call.
Yep.
That's very nice.
Yes.
Yeah, and he plugged the Discord so that we don't have to.
Well, he plugged his own podcast, which is a bit challenging, but I think we'll leave it in there. But yeah, one of the best ways you can help us is by leaving a review on iTunes, Google, wherever, Spotify, Yelp. Still hoping to get one of those. Food was 10 out of 10.
Food for your ears.
So the topic for the week is a loose framework. Board games get people to the table. You end up talking with people at the table and things happen. I think that in some ways, board games bring people together who may not otherwise end up ever communicating with each other. And that leads to social hijinks. Both highs and lows. So the game I wanted to talk about was a game we played at Gen Con. As a note, we have received a review copy of this game from North Star Games. This is Wits and Wagers Party Edition. So this is in
Vegas edition.
Sorry, that's actually relevant. Wits and Wagers Vegas Edition. So this is a new Target exclusive version of Wits and Wagers Vegas Edition. Wits and Wagers Vegas was an expansion for Wits and Wagers Party that you could get on Kickstarter. Now, what's the difference between all these versions of Wits and Wagers? I'm not exactly sure, but Wits and Wagers Vegas Edition is quite good.
Yes.
This is at this point, classic trivia game where everyone writes an answer to a question that the game does not expect you to actually know the answer to. For example, a good example of a question is, in a 24-hour period, what is the farthest that one human has ever been able to run? And so everyone can kind of start doing a little bit of math. You kind of go, well, Mark might say it takes me about 30 minutes to run a mile. So, multiply that by 2, multiply that by 24. Mark is a slow man, and so you can kind of do some math to figure it out. And then you put down an answer. All the answers come out and they're arranged in order from smallest to largest, and they're placed on a mat where the middle answer becomes the answer that gives you the least payout, because now you're about to start betting, Vegas style, baby. You're about to start betting on which answer you think comes closest. What's cool about this edition of Wits and Wagers is that you can never lose your 2 betting chips. Is that the same as the other edition?
It's the same as the first edition, but not the second edition.
Okay, well, we're not going to be able to keep this this origin straight, so we'll just keep this all in there.
Sure, you got it.
And then you also have the opportunity to bet on all the numbers above the middle number, so kind of betting on black, so to speak,
right,
or betting on red, so 50-50 that you're going to get it right, or maybe a little less than 50-50, but the payout is less. And then as you move towards the margins, the most extreme answers have the best payouts. And you can also bet your own chips if you want on subsequent rounds, in addition to those 2 betting chips that you always get. We had a great time playing this. I destroyed everyone.
See, the thing is, whenever it comes to trivia games, I sort of pride myself on my trivia knowledge. I know Wits and Wagers, you're not supposed to know the answers, but I always feel confident when I play a trivia game. So I started out this game by talking shit. I mean, I'm always going to talk shit whenever I play, but I was very confident in my shit talking, and it did not work out for me in this game.
I don't remember what the question was, but the answer was 44%.
I remember, yes.
And it made me a ton of money.
That's right.
I remember the question, and it was still surprising to me. It was what percentage of American people have listened to a podcast? I am shocked that it's as high as 44%.
But Kellen nailed it. Hit it right on the head.
On the dot.
I mean, all the research for this is all me. Come on, guys. So, Wits and Wagers, Vegas edition, Target exclusive, is great. I like the art on it. I'm excited to play it. I'm excited to play it with my family. It's a great one to have in my collection.
I totally agree.
But we also had a fun encounter during our demo. Anytime someone joins the Board Game Barrage podcast for a game and they don't know us, they don't know what they're in for.
And this happened a lot during the course of the convention.
Yeah, it's the fun thing about playing a bunch of games in quick succession with just assorted people is they get exposed to us.
Yeah.
But in this case, we got exposed to him. So, yeah, we were playing this demo, or we were playing a game of Wits and Wagers Vegas edition, and maybe about halfway through the game, this guy got a kind of a dumb smirk on his face, like he knew something that we didn't know. And the demo, I think everyone was a little confused because he finally, I don't even know. This was weird.
Yeah. So we were playing the game. We're all, sort of like having fun, taking jabs at each other and making fun of the questions or whatever. And then somebody is walking by and he's sort of looking at the game, and the demoer is like, "Oh, do you want to join in?" And he said, "Sure." He hops in and we start playing. And then like 5 minutes into it, I think he was there with his girlfriend or his wife. He pulls out his phone and he's looking at it. And then all of a sudden he asked the demoer how much it was. And the demoer said something like $30. And he's like, "Oh, you can get it right now, $25 on Amazon." And we're like, what is, like, we just looked at each other like, what is this guy doing? Why would you say that? Yeah, right. I mean, if you don't want to buy it because you can save $5 on Amazon, I totally get that. But to like immediately respond to this demoer saying it was $30 by saying, "Oh, I can get it $5 cheaper on Amazon," seemed a little
like he was going to turn around and be like, "Oh, well, you can have it for $25 then." Yeah.
Right, yeah.
If that's the case, then.
I think I okay broed him was my response.
Yeah.
But if I was not wearing a Board Game Barrage t-shirt,
yeah, it would have been on.
It would have been a much more exciting discussion.
Yeah, that was
And he kind of also just like pieced out immediately afterwards as well. It was very strange.
Yeah.
But I feel like he had this dumb smirk on his face, like he was like saving us from accidentally spending an extra $5 to support the publisher.
Maybe, yeah. I was trying to avoid eye contact.
Oh, I never avoid eye contact.
That's true.
You're welcome, Rachel.
So yeah, early on in the convention, we were fortunate enough to have a meetup sort of thrown together with a bunch of listeners. And that was really fun to get a chance to meet all these people who had only been talking through either Discord or, BGG or however, to get a chance to meet them face to face and to play some games. The only problem was that we had a bigger turnout than we expected, and space was sort of at a premium. Mm-hmm. So we had, I think, one or two tables that we had sort of like squatted on in this room, but we had about 3 or 4 tables worth of people who wanted to hang out with us and play. So we were sort of at a loss what to do. So what I did was I did like a reconnaissance mission and sort of went through the hotel, peeking my head into rooms, trying to find something that was available. And I found this room that was like perfect. It was like nobody was in there. It looked completely abandoned.
All the tables were like uncovered. Like all the tablecloths were just like piled in the corner.
All the chairs were stacked.
Yeah.
It was like a storage room. I'm like, hey, perfect. We can just sneak in here and play some games and we'll be good. So I went downstairs to where everybody was waiting, and I said, "Let's go." And
everyone I think files up in a single column.
I think Kellen's like, "Is this like a legit thing you're doing, or what are we doing?" And I said, "We're just going to storm the room, and whatever happens, happens." So we all got in there. We pulled down the chairs, and we rearranged the tables. We set the whole thing up, and we started playing. And then, how did we find out? Did you go out to get something to drink?
Yeah, I went outside and there were people just standing all around the door, like waiting for us to get the hell out.
Dressed in full medieval attire. There was a LARPing.
Medieval. I was like either werewolf or vampire. Also.
Right. Yeah. So there's a bunch of LARPers who were at our door waiting. I guess they had the room reserved for like 8 o'clock.
Right.
We were playing for about 30 minutes, but we had like 10 minutes to go and we were trying to like hurry through this game. I think we were playing, at least Neil and I were playing Letter Jam.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was hilarious trying to like quickly try to finish this co-op word game while these people in Renaissance regalia are.
And meanwhile, one or two of them are slowly trickling into the room.
Yeah,
and
right.
Like gets very passive aggressive at some point. With like, oh,
do you guys have this room reserved?
Yeah.
No. I'm like, well,
don't mind us. We're just playing this in the corner.
No, they tried to get us to LARP with them.
Oh, that's right. They sold us on the
yeah.
LARP. Yeah, right. We should have played that up and try to squeeze in some extra time. But no, it was just really funny because we knew we were toward the end of the game, and Kellen was like checking back in and out.
I was being a good account man.
You were, and every time you'd go and come back, I was like waiting to see like
it was
an
getting
update.
worse.
Yeah, I was
pressing closer to the
that's
door.
right. That's right. Like, how much time do we have? You're like 5 minutes. They're right there. So, playing Letter Gem up against the pressure of the LARPers invading.
Impending doom.
Impending LARPs. That was a funny time.
One of the things I specifically remember from the games we were playing is a game called Catch the Moon, which is a dexterity stacking game where you have these very nice little wooden ladders that you're sort of trying to pile as high as possible, and they lock into each other in a very satisfying way. So you roll a die, and that determines like whether you place it on one or two ladders, and you keep building higher and higher. And this was going pretty well for a long time until I did the most Nealon thing possible, which is shatter the entire thing across the floor of the booth.
This is like I feel like this is like a kid's game. Like
very much, yeah.
It's like it's almost like sort of like an erector set sort of thing where turns are very simple. You're placing these ladders on top of each other because the ladders have these little like spaces in between the rungs. They sort of naturally lock together.
Exactly. It never felt precarious.
Yeah, the thing is like everything's tied up. Like even if a piece falls down, there's so many other ladders and there's so many rungs to catch it that it always feels really stable.
You're right. It sort of holds itself together by gravity.
Yeah.
Unless you're me.
And so he had what we called the Men at Work moment where listeners who've heard the episode remember when we played Men at Work, Nealon on his turn, he like touched the structure and it completely shattered.
I don't know how I keep doing this. Like literally disintegrated into nothing. Like normally in these games, like one or two pieces fall, you take a card, and move on.
Yeah, right.
But the entire
game is
thing
not
fell
built
apart.
for you playing it right.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's funny because like you're supposed to just like adjust to the collapse and keep going.
Right.
But it would be like, oh, we're not going to start over from scratch.
Right. Yeah.
And then left this poor kid to recover ladders from the floor.
So funny. Like Kellen and I are like throwing ladders on top of the structure willy nilly. We don't even like care. Everything is like holding together, and then Nealon is like very carefully placing it, and the entire.
And I felt
shattered.
like it was so ginger as well. I just touched it.
I don't know how it happens. I would have to like swing a ladder at the structure to accomplish what you did by just placing it. It was crazy.
It was spectacular.
I wanted to finish the game, but there was no more ladder.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So I had another interesting experience playing a game called Woolly Whammoth. This is a game where you have a few cavemen. You want to move these cavemen up this track to get to the woolly mammoth at the end that you're going to kill, I guess. The game is very, very, very tame, but you're basically killing the woolly mammoth for food. I guess hunting the woolly mammoth for food, and the first person to get 6 pieces of food, I think, wins the game. So what you're doing on your turn is you're playing a card. Everybody plays a card simultaneously. The numbers that everybody has are combined, and that's how many steps you're taking up the ladder. Your own card will allow you to modify it a little bit. So if I had a 2 showing and Kellen had a 3 and Nealon had a 1, that'd be everybody would have to move up 6 spaces on this track, basically. And our individual cards might let us move up or down 1 to sort of have a little bit of a different spaces that you move. Anyway, so I was playing with Dan and the demoer, and we've been playing this game, again, real simple game, for about 20 minutes, and we were sort of close to the end of it. And it wasn't really doing much for me or Dan, but we just were so close to the end that we decided to keep playing. Dan and I reveal our cards, and I take my little caveman guy and I move it up the track. And on the track, there are these little tar pit spaces, but there's a lot of art on the tracks, and the tar pit spaces, Dan and I had assumed, because we weren't told otherwise, that they were just, aesthetic, just art on the space. And then the demoer was like, "Oh, you're dead." And I was like, "Wait, what are you talking about?" He's like, "Oh, no, if you step on the tar pit space, you're dead." And like Dan's like, "Oh, we've been doing that all game long." And the demoer had been playing with us and had never mentioned a thing about it the entire game. And it's just like, I was like, well, we're going to finish this game playing with tar spaces. You're okay. Because we were playing with it like the entire time. And it's just, I mean, the demoers are doing a Herculean task demoing the games over and over and over again. But like some of the really bad demoing instances we had were really, really frustrating.
This is like one of my favorite subclass of Gen Con stories is just demos that don't quite know their game as well enough as they should.
Right. I feel like if you're demoing a game like Woolly Whammoth, which has like 2 rules,
right,
and you're playing with us and you see us doing this like thing, which is one of the 2 rules, and you don't let us know, it's like not so great. But yeah, Dan and I walked away just like flabbergasted.
Speaking of just the mental anguish that must be being a demoer, we were talking to the God of War demoer, and asking him questions about the other scenarios and what the characters felt like, if the missions all felt similar. And he revealed to us that for 4 days straight, with a 2-hour lunch break every day, he had done the exact same scenario that we had just done for 30 minutes over and over again. And that, in fact, he had never seen anything beyond that point. And I sat there in shock.
Yeah.
Like, I was sort of like...
No matter how good the game is, that must just be mind-numbing.
I mean, imagine if he's logging that.
And that's a game where, like, the surprise is one of the things, like the twist. That
Right.
like, I wonder what's behind this card. Oh, yeah, it's the...
I just feel like, yeah, at some point, it'd be us stumbling around. And he's like, no, go there. No.
Yeah. And I mean, to his credit, he was still although we caught him at the very end of the con.
It was the last demo of Gen Con.
So maybe he was excited for that reason, but he was great. He was not like the Woolly Whammoth guy at all.
Mm-hmm.
So I got mistaken for a demoer while we were playing. Is it Click Clack Lumberjack or
Yeah.
Talk Talk Woodman?
No, this is the Americanized version.
No.
America.
The Japanese version is Bling Bling Gemstone.
Oh, okay. I thought
And then
TikTok might be German.
They changed the name in various editions.
Yeah.
Anyway, there's a very great dexterity game that has the unfortunate problem of, like Jenga, taking longer to set up than it does to play, where you build up a tree and then you use an axe to hit down pieces of wood off that tree and collect points. So someone sat down next to the three of us, and I guess we were in their demo area, to be fair.
Right.
We just sort of sat down at a table, and I'm like, oh, I can teach this. And so we started playing, and the guy asked me, oh, would you, do you recommend this game? And then I hit with the axe and knocked over the entire tree. And then I said, actually, it's kind of annoying to set back up. And we're in Mayday's booth.
Right.
And I'm dissuading this man from purchasing the game. And I was kind of showing him how annoying it was to set back up the tree. That was bad.
That was funny.
One of my favorite in retrospect,
This is so good.
but at the time I was mortified for multiple reasons.
Let's set the stage a little bit, because
Yeah.
this was the last day of the
is-
convention.
Yeah, this is the Sunday. This
Yeah.
is, an hour and a bit before the floor is going
Yeah.
to close.
Time's running out.
Yeah, we're like, well, let's find something quick to play, because at this point, we've gone past a couple of sort of heavier games and been like, you know what, I don't think I have the energy to learn this right now, because we're running on fumes.
Right.
So this is after 3 late nights of recording podcasts. We've been walking around the whole weekend.
We want something light,
we want something
breezy.
light. Yeah. So we're walking past.
Couldn't get any sleep because people were banging on our hotel door.
Yeah, exactly. And we're walking past Command Games booth, and
Try hard.
because I'm actually saying their name properly.
No, come on. That's unfair.
No,
They
it
changed
is
their
come
name.
on.
I know. They changed their name
That's
because they are tryhard.
They are tryhards.
They're like, we're not just doing minis anymore because their Kickstarters aren't working
Right.
anymore.
Why not Simon?
Well, because Simon is ridiculous, because everyone would see Simon and say, come on.
Yeah, I get it.
And then they were like, no, we're Simon. We're not come on.
Yeah.
And then, sorry, guys, we actually are come on.
But random anecdote. They kept trying to get me to take this free Arcadia Quest comic book, and there was 5 dudes who worked for Come On, and then they're like, just take it, just take a few of them, just take the comic book. And I took one, and they kept trying to me to take more. Anyway, as I was leaving, I heard one of them say to the other, you forgot to say come on.
I love it. They're trying to sell their new name.
I was like, oh my gosh, right to the very end, these company men.
So as we're walking past the Come On Games booth, Callan remembers that they have this new game, Foodies, that he's heard is a light, fun game that would be maybe the right thing to just not necessarily close us out, but at least might be the good thing before we sort of think about heading out. So we sit down to play, and there's a demo standing at the table, and it's just the 3 of us sitting down. And I don't want to be, I certainly don't want to be too mean about this because I do not envy anyone that has to do this for 4 days straight.
Especially when we're catching them at the very, very end.
Exactly.
They also are running on fumes.
Right. Imagine, if we're in this situation, imagine like them at this point, an hour before the floor closes on the last day. But they had this instinct, which was totally incorrect, to sort of like lead with these sort of, I want to say like light comedy bits, these very rehearsed jokes that were not landing, and especially on us at that point. Like we were just not having any of it.
Yeah.
And the best part was as new people would sit down at the table, they would repeat the jokes.
Yeah.
And it was just kind of like, okay, and they're going to deliver them in the same way, start to finish.
Oh my gosh.
With multiple beats to the delivery, none of them landing to the new people. And we're just like, what do you want from us here?
Yeah, the person tells the joke. It's sort of so bad that it's charming the first time.
Yeah.
And so we're about to start the game. They invite a couple people to join us. The people join us, and then they tell the exact same joke.
In the exact same way.
Oh, my God.
It was hard.
And it wasn't a long joke, but there was so much setup.
Yeah, exactly.
Tear down to the joke.
That was the best part. Because then, like, once it starts to happen, I'm thinking, they're not going to do it.
I know. Exactly.
They're not going to do the whole thing again. And then they get to the next part. It's like, okay.
Honestly, this is a game that could have been taught in 5 minutes that took like 15, 20. And like all I'm doing is like staring at Kellen, who's across the table from me, and like tapping Nealon on the foot. Like, I can't stand this. Like,
Right.
I sent Kellen a naughty message.
A very rude text message.
I did.
I was having fun. I was excited about Foodies. This is Machikoro. This is space based, but Foodies.
There you go. Well, things really picked up when we had people join us.
Yeah, because then once we had filled the table with the 5, we had...
And the joke has been said twice.
At this point, yes. We've gotten past the second iteration of the comedy routine. Yeah. We start getting into the meat of the game and the rules, and this couple are not getting it.
No.
Like, there are simple rules that are being questioned multiple times. Every single time one of them would do I think they were sort of claiming victory points for a special power that it had.
Yeah.
Their partner would ask, how is that happening?
Yeah.
It's like, we've explained this.
Yeah.
We've explained this 3 times at this point. And the things that there was so much deliberation over everything. And we're just like, this game should never take this long.
Yeah. The guy of the couple was like very confused about some of the rules, and it was like asking a lot of questions, and then his wife presumably was just like wanting to make the perfect move. Like, she took so long on her turn. A game that should just be flying. A game that like you don't have very many choices to make. You just should be going. And
because this is like a Machikoro like
yeah, exactly.
It should be roll, decide, decide. Like, it should be moving.
I was going crazy, and like it got to the point. It was so painful, and obviously Kellen Nealon felt the same way. And at one point, Kellen is like, just under his breath, like, should we just leave? And I said, we can't. We can't leave. But then right after that, the guy asked another question. I forget something else. And I was like, okay, let's go.
Yeah, this is it.
Yeah. Can do it.
Actually, my favorite part of this whole exchange was when we declared that we had an appointment to go to.
Yeah.
And then walked 20
Circled
feet.
around the booth back to the God of War table.
Yeah. Oh, my God.
And then played God of War.
Yeah. That was so rough. Oh, my gosh.
Because I remember as we left as well, Mark was like, we can't leave. This can't be the last thing we
were
did.
considering leaving the convention after that. I'm like, I can't have that the last thing that we do.
I think I must have been such a space cadet that like nothing could faze me.
Yeah.
Because it strikes me that I would be the most annoyed by this whole exchange more than you two. But I was like kind of just smiling the whole time. Because it was like anytime the woman would insult the man anytime it was something positive. Like, how did you do that?
Right.
Like, it wasn't like, it was pretty specific.
Right.
It was like, you're scoring points right now?
Didn't you start like being obnoxious? I thought you started asking questions that were like ridiculous.
What is it, like the America
the one thing
and French stuff?
The one thing I remember is like there was a competition over types of food, and you had the monopoly on American food, and he bought one American food stall, and you were just like, really? You're going to compete with me with American food? And I'm just like, Kellen, what are you doing? Please, we cannot have this conversation right now.
I was trying to win.
Yeah, but again, it was excruciating. But in retrospect, like, I loved having, after we left and we'd moved on, it was just hilarious having that story.
Yeah, it ends up being one of the best memories.
Yeah.
Actually.
Right.
Which is kind of, I think, the most telling about all of this is that like these little interactions with people that you would never expect would happen, because you're going around and the focus is the games, but then these little moments happen that are just specific to the people that you're playing with. And yeah, I love stuff like that. And in general, that kind of like leads to, I think, what is one of the greater points that I want to make is that one of the greatest things about playing board games is interacting with people in a way that you probably never would. Like without the structure of the game there, we would never have met delightful elderly couple playing Foodies or obnoxious person that came in at Wits and Wagers to tell us the price of the game. And yeah, that stuff is fantastic. Like one of my favorite interactions from the convention, and I think we'll all agree, is sitting down just to play a game with Mike Delicio from Sporadically Bored, under the conceit of just playing a card game with him that led into a greater chat about the industry and sort of what our goals were. And stuff like that was just so insightful and so meaningful and so significant, and was informed like the best parts of my whole weekend, to be quite honest.
It reminded me of like the way in which you say, do you want to Netflix and chill? But really what you want to do is
what, Kellen?
So
waggling
like,
your eyes
like,
at me.
Mike, do you want to play a board game with us?
Wink, wink.
But really, you have other motives on your mind.
There you go.
Yep.
And no,
I absolutely no. I get what you're saying. It's absolutely true. Like it's like we've always said. It's like a social framework, and it's a very, very powerful one. The joy of interacting with our listeners is something that, in any other context could be an awkward situation.
Yeah.
You're meeting people, a ton of people all at once that you've never met before. But suddenly you're like, hey, everyone, sit down. We're going to play finger guns and sort of point finger guns at each other for half an hour. And that's fun and it's funny and that gets everyone involved, and suddenly you're having silly conversations about winning Star Realms tournaments, and it's incredible.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's awesome. Without having board games, we wouldn't have had this like connector with all these people, this like natural way, like what I'm saying, to just sit down and get over the awkwardness and just start joking and laughing and telling stories and introducing people to Biblios and a lot of other great things.
I was trying to like down hype it while you were trying to hype it while we were there.
Biblios?
Yeah. Well, it was kind of like you were the man bringing people the game Potato Man, and I was actually bringing real games to the people.
What good games are you
like
bringing?
Conflicting Legends?
Like Innovation.
You didn't even have Innovation.
Well, it was in my heart. That is going to do it for our discussion this week. Next week, we'll be back to our regular scheduled programming, our Mensa level programming. But we did want to just go around and say a game that we're super excited to get played soon. I think for me, Seasons of Inish, a review copy we were given from Matago, is just waiting for me at home. I read the rules last night, even though I should not have, because I was extremely, extremely tired. I'm just really excited about all the new additions, including the 5th player.
For me, another review copy we got, I've talked about this game now 5 or 6 times, but closing in on actually getting a chance to play the City of Big Shoulders. I'm so happy that this is like a 2.5 hour game and that I could like play it with these guys without having to like say, hey, you guys want to play an 18xx game for 6 hours. Like the idea that I could share experience like that with these two that isn't going to take all night and is going to be, fairly easy to teach and fairly easy to grasp is like just such an exciting possibility. So I'm excited to crack that one open.
For me, Eternal Chronicles of the Throne is something that we picked up, and we got a brief taste of this as a 3-player game in the airport as we're all rushing to catch our planes, and it got me excited to actually sort of dig into it and sort of play it as a proper 2-player game. It seems definitely intended to be a 1v1 game, and there are systems there that are super interesting that I'm very excited to see how they play out over the next few games.
Yeah, so I hope this serves as a nice bridge or a nice amalgamation of everything that sort of happened at Gen Con 2019, but also how we feel like it relates to the hobby at large. And it is always about the games until it's not. And then it's about the people, man.
That's right. You die if you step in the tar pits. Learned that too late.
You can find more Board Game Barrage content if you want at www.boardgamebarrage.com. You can find us on Instagram. You can find us on Discord at boardgamebarrage.com/Discord. This is where we are arguing with everyone. You can find us on Patreon at patreon.com/boardgamebarrage.
We're going to be releasing a new Patreon episode pretty soon. Buy your tickets for Shucks. We're coming to Shucks. If you missed us at Gen Con, you can find us in Vancouver, Canada, the great North. We the North.
And we're actually going to get some respect there, right? We're going to be on the stage.
That's right, where we belong, front and center.
Thank you to Heart Society Music for letting us use the song What's on Your Mind, Kid from their album Wake the Queen. Thanks again, guys. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Sorry, I did not. I don't know how to use Android.
You just tap the screen, Calvin.
Nope. These are iOS fingers, baby.
Do you want to close with the GUI?
Neelan, open the door. Neelan, you're opening your heart to us right now.
Should I just keep going? Yeah, no, sure.
Open your heart.
That we were not in danger of buying. Well, sorry, that's a weirdly mean thing to say.
Especially because we got it for free.
Exactly. Anyway, you make it work. Enjoy.
Work some magic.
Yeah, exactly. Spin some words around. And yeah, that's